Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Maven podcast, where I help ambitious entrepreneurs and investors find a thriving franchise fit or flip their business into one. And each week I bring you many special guests on the show to talk about their entrepreneurial journeys as well, whether it be franchising or not. And today I have with me Gretchen Villegas, who is a global development executive. Gretchen is a seasoned executive leader with 25 plus years experience, specializing in mission-driven innovative program designs through partnership development, impact scaling, and revenue growth. We all need revenue growth. That's the idea there. She has professional experience in managing international country programs in vulnerable communities. Awesome. With a portfolio of over $320 million funded by both public and private donors. And she's also going to tell us today that she's currently working on a franchising idea in micromanufacturing in Africa and Latin America as a way to increase wealth locally and increase income for vulnerable populations. Good. I love that. Mitigate climate change. Yay. And reduce food security. Yes. We all got it. I do like that's one good thing. Definitely. And reduce migration as there will be jobs available. Quite the portfolio of background. Gretchen, thank you very much for being here today.
It's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Now, have you done this all your life, or was some point in time that there's some inspiration to start your own company and go out and do your own thing?
Oh gosh. Well, I started out as a Peace Corps volunteer. So it's been in me since I was in my early 20s. And then I was gifted with the opportunity to work in Latin America and East and Southern Africa for about 15 years before coming back to the US. And so I got to see so much of business taking place, but also the vulnerable communities right there at the same time. And so since I've been back in the US, working as some of the executive teams here, I got to a point and I said, it's time that we really look at business principles in how we bring about true sustainable change for the most vulnerable. And I think we can do that. And that's kind of how it came about.
So, what services? What are we looking at for services, main services that you offer?
Right. So it's called 10X Impact Ventures. We're
Mhm.
just in startup right now phase. But what we're looking at is small or medium enterprises, either in Africa or Latin America. And I can share a few examples of ones we're working with right now. But they're from the country. So they're Guatemalans, Hondurans, they're Kenyans or Ugandans. And they already have started working on using agricultural waste from their supply chains, right? Which is from the vulnerable communities, and basically upcycling it into usable products. So we're talking about banana fiber into burlap bags. We're talking about coffee cherry into coffee powder that can actually be very nutritional in our diets. And so, in looking at all of that, basically what we do is we seek out these what we call anchor companies. We support the anchor company in basically packaging the business idea to, okay, how do you want to grow into using agricultural waste? So not just coffee, not just the bananas, but the actual waste that's left.
Mhm.
What does that actually mean then? We help the entrepreneur think through what kind of impact does that bring for the community? Because it brings more income and more wealth. And then what kind of bottom line business potential does that mean for you overall? And where can we link you to the US or the European market?
How are you finding these clients? Do you have an ideal client that you go out and search for?
That's a great question. Most of them are coming through networks. So, I have a very deep network of people who I know in Latin America and Africa, and I'm working with some other co-founders as well on 10X Impact Ventures. One in particular, he is from Nigeria, so understands the context and what these entrepreneurs really are looking for. And one of the biggest issues is just financing. I mean, the ideas and the intellect and most of even the innovations are there, but it's that access to finance that's just so difficult. So, yeah, mostly through networks, and just letting people know that we're interested in doing this, not part as a aid package, but part of bringing them into the actual mainstream market.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's pretty amazing. So you bring in the people that need the help and then the people that'll fund it, and you bring those people together so it's profitable for everybody, the people that are living there, it's more sustainable food security, and then the people that are bringing in the money make some money on it as well while helping others.
Absolutely. And so we're at the stage right now where you've got the anchor company. So we've got to make sure they're strong, right? They're strong companies. They're truly, viable. Most of them are missing, like most entrepreneurs, even in the US, that little piece, right?
Yeah.
So it's that little marketing piece, or I need a little more demand, or I don't quite have all the equipment I need. So we're making sure that the anchor companies are strong financially and viably, and then moving them into franchise models. And the reason for that is because we have smallholder farmers around the world producing 90% of the agriculture products that we eat globally.
Hmm.
Yes, 90%.
Wow.
And in the last 10 years, that production's gone down by 20%. And if we're looking at who we need to feed by 2050, it's 10 billion people. That's what the World Bank is stating right now, 10 billion people, which means that we actually have to increase that yield of that 90% by 60% by 2050 to actually feed everybody, right?
Wow.
So what we're tackling is this opportunity to say, look, you can be part of the building these supply chains of utilizing agricultural byproducts to increase the wealth and revenue base of the vulnerable communities that then they can reinvest in bringing higher yields because they have access to seeds, different know-how and knowledge and whatnot, and care for the earth at the very same time. So we're really looking at, it's a triple bottom line, right? We've got the people, right? They're eating and they're increasing their incomes. We got the planet. We're making sure we're getting rid of all that environmental waste.
Yep.
And then the profit. We're using profit margins to reduce poverty.
As the way it should be. I like that.
Yep,
Yep. I like to grow my own stuff as much as possible as well on that one. So I'm with you on that.
that's
Uh,
great.
and your micro manufacturing idea in that franchising idea in Africa and Latin America, what's that all about?
So the micro manufacturing really is the opportunity for this anchor company,
Mhm.
okay, to have a model. So let's talk about East Africa right now, and let's talk about the banana fiber. And so taking in the stalks of the banana, so not just the banana fruit, but the stalks of the banana, and being able to use various machines to decord it, have it for women so they can do weaving and whatnot, but also make it into burlap bags.
Hmm.
So right now, all of the burlap bags that are being used to export coffee from East Africa into the United States and Europe, they're jute bags. And guess what? They don't make jute bags in East Africa. They import them from
Ooh.
Kenya. So we want to substitute that. We want to be able to utilize that bio waste into that product and basically replace those jute bags with something local. And so what we want to be able to do is not only will the anchor company do it, but it will be created as a business in a box. So the main anchor company, okay, has the equipment and the know-how. We are working with them, right, and intellectual property to create their processes in a box, so in a smaller version that can be placed out in those vulnerable communities,
Oh,
and they can become additional businesses that are connected to the anchor company, but that anchor company holds a licensing fee along with us. And so that's where we come into play, where we are putting all the different pieces together and we're bringing all the investment together, making sure everybody has the know-how of the business and the ecosystem of who's there and the data analytics of how we're impacting the vulnerable and the poor, right? So we're making good decisions, not decisions just throwing stuff at the wall.
Yeah.
Um, but at the end of the day, there are licensing fees around how we're franchising. And so we're right at the point of looking at what type of franchising model can be used in these emerging markets. There's various different ones that have been out there for a while, but they haven't been very successful. And part of it, I think, has to do with really linking into and getting ownership of the supply chain. And the difference here is that the supply chain will most likely be the owners of those franchises. You can't get much better than that.
Yeah. And it's all local, so everybody's helping each other out in their own community that way. So everybody
That's
knows
right.
each other. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so we're basically breaking the cycles. We're breaking all of that setup, that business structure that doesn't work for the poor. And we're putting something in place where they're a productive part of the actual business infrastructure. So we look at a vulnerable farmer as a business owner. They're not looked at as needing charity to fill in their gaps, right, of
Right.
basic needs, but they are actually part of the ecosystem of that owner, the anchor company, the owner of the licensing for the franchise. And that's why we are seeing it work, and we believe it's going to work as it expands. And we're looking for more partners now to help us move it forward, whether it's investment or whether it's just some really good thinking about what people have seen and done.
That's just an amazing idea. I love it, the fact that you help out people and they're all just one big community, just like a franchise is a community in itself. But now you've got the actual community, people where they're physically located, are all working together towards the same goal to help out their area and build that up. That
Absolutely. And, like, so one of my colleagues, who's a co-founder in 10X Impact Ventures, she always says, and she knows this much better than I do, it's logistics costs. It's all about all these logistics costs and
Yeah.
and being able to make sure the supply chain's there. I said, well, let's close that gap. Let's bring them together. We can absolutely do that. And I think that's the piece that impact investors are really going to enjoy about this, because they not only get to invest and see profits, but at the end of the day, they actually get to see the impact that it's having at the very same time.
True. Good point.
Yeah.
Now you work with there's like many moving parts going on there all at the same time. And not everybody is necessarily from the same culture. So you manage a multicultural team. So let's talk about it from an entrepreneurial standpoint, what you're doing there. How do you keep that multicultural team all focused on the same goal and working together?
That's a great question. It is all about trust.
Yeah,
It
no
is
problem.
all about trust, and it's about spending time with one another and really inviting the different perspectives. Because if we were to walk in with our, US based perspective, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere with any of these anchor companies. But because we took the pieces that made sense, and within our co-founders, we have those who are from, large consumer goods stores, right? We have those that have, like myself, spent a lot of time as a Peace Corps volunteer in the field and working with private sector as well as governments and nonprofit. And then we have someone from Nigeria in the mix. We're basically every single day putting out ideas and then looking at all of the trade-offs to see if they would work or not. And then we're taking it farther. We're actually reaching out to others and saying, look, if we do it this way or that way, is this going to, one, entice investment? Two, will the community engage with it, right? And actually own it? And number three, can the emerging market make it happen in the short and near term so that it can continue growing? Because the truth is, not everything works everywhere. As business leaders, we know that.
Do you ever put everybody together in the same room, like down there
Oh,
in the communities that you're working with?
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I think, really trying to put together the package deals for going out and looking for investors, especially investors within the circular economy, because I think that's going to continue booming. Because right now we've got to increase yields and increase income, right, for food. Well, we've got to use what's being wasted right now. And so I think really bringing in those experts around the circular economy, those that invest into only the circular economy, I think has really been a game changer for us and complete learning for me as well. I mean, I knew agriculture and I knew vulnerable communities. I knew how to bring in the private sector and what incentives were, but I never knew how much upcycling could change a community and how much investors were interested in that, which is fantastic because it's our future world.
Did you come up with all this yourself, or did you have a
Oh,
mentor or anything like that helping you out along the way?
no, there are three co-founders, and I think what you talked about multiculturalism is completely true. It took all three of us coming together and putting our heads together to make it happen. And you know what I'd say? We mentor and coach each other. We all show up with skills, and we all show up with ideas from our own experiences and perspectives. But on a daily basis, my co-founder, Carly Rosencrantz, and Anu Frank Lawali, um, are always coaching me and teaching me different things. And I think that's why I know this is going to work.
Now, have you mentored youth in your career going through your thing?
Absolutely. So in those 15 years abroad, I spent a lot of time building up small, medium enterprises. So you probably know some of the big co-ops like Land O'Lakes, big butter company, cooperative,
Yeah.
as well as the National Cooperative Business Association. There's lots of small, medium-sized businesses within that U.S. association. I worked for both of those organizations while I was in Africa and Latin America.
Mhm.
And what was really important in the programming was that it wasn't handouts. It truly was building up the business infrastructure of sustainability. And with that, it was bringing in a lot of the youth. So youth today do not necessarily want to do agriculture. It's just not the sexy thing to do, right? They'd rather work on technology or transport or anything that's like quick moving. And so a lot of my time was spent thinking through, okay, we've got the families, but then the youth who are in these rural areas and they don't have work. What can we offer them in terms of knowledge and seed capital so that they can actually start their businesses? And sure enough, I mean, whether you were talking about dairy or you were talking about horticulture commodities, it didn't matter. There were all these businesses along that chain, right,
Yeah.
between supply and processing and demand that it was just, I would say it was the most rewarding part to bring in a young person. And some of them aren't even able to finish school because there isn't enough money in their family for the school
Yeah.
fees. So to be able to pick up business principles and to be able to access some, minimal funding to start working in some of these supply chains and then understanding what role they play and they can make money quick. It was tremendous, absolutely tremendous. And that was besides bringing in some of the young women out of the universities who otherwise probably wouldn't have had a job, but I went and I found them and said, come work for me.
Hmm.
I want you here and I want you to have a voice and I want you to, use your skill set. And so my win at the end of the day, totally honest with you, I have I think two women now who have reached out to me, one in Uganda and one in Malawi, both at the top of their career, managing some very, very influential and important positions in their countries. So
Outstanding.
we can make a difference.
Yes. Yes, indeed. So you said you got started out in the Peace Corps.
Yep.
Was that the very first job you got out of high school?
So to actually get in the Peace Corps, you have to have a bachelor's degree.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
learn something.
very competitive, right?
Yeah.
So you have your 4-year degree and then you apply, and not everyone gets in. Even at the time I went in, which was back in 97. So and then you're placed for 2 years as a volunteer. And then after I left being a volunteer, I got my master's degree at the School for International Training. And I was lucky enough that Land O'Lakes International Development out of Minnesota picked me up and sent me over to Nicaragua to start working with some cooperatives to help them um, ensure that their workings and their processes were up to par, that they could pass FDA standards to
Yeah.
actually export into the U.S. So I had no idea what I was doing, but I was successful because
Yeah, sounds.
you just have to ask people along the way. We're here to get this done. Let's figure out who needs to be at the table to do it. So
That's so cool. So what made you decide then to go the Peace Corps route in college?
that's a great question. So when I was in college, I went to a private college that allowed us to study abroad and also earn credit. So I was abroad 3.5 years out of 4. So
Wow.
yeah, I was in Mexico, I was in Spain, I was in London, I spent some time in Washington, D.C., all doing hands-on work with different organizations. And I think I think that it just gave me this insight that I just wanted to see what was out there. And Peace Corps was a way of saying, okay, well, I want to learn about global development. I don't know really what it is. But what I learned when I went there was you're a bridge. You're a bridge to help people who want to make their lives better, figure out where the resources are and where the knowledge is. And it was at that point where I said, yeah, I can do this. I can't be just an aid worker and give handouts, but I can be a bridge builder. I can do that. Yeah,
That makes sense because handouts are dependent on you all the time. But if you show them how to be independent and utilize what they have, that's much more fulfilling for everybody
absolutely. Yep.
and a good feeling. Boy, you got around a lot there back in the day and still do.
Yeah. Well, I feel really blessed to have had that opportunity. I mean, the truth is, when the door opens, you have to walk through it. And right. And that's still what I tell my girls and I tell everyone else, look, sky's the limit. Don't fear, just do and enjoy what you're doing and take learnings from it. Because as you learn, that will guide you into what your kind of end goal is in terms of your legacy that you're going to leave on this earth. You have no idea what that is when you're
True.
16 or you're 20, even when you're 30. But when you finally get to that, okay, I've got 25, 30 years of experience. Now, what have I actually learned that I can leave as a legacy for those who are going to be here?
There you go, especially your kids. You got your kids to think about and help sustain them. They got to eat and their kids got to eat. So how are we going to do that? And you got to figure
Absolutely.
it out.
Yep.
Your kids help you with any of that? You take your kids out there and they get involved?
Yeah. So they were with me the entire time.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah. And so it's amazing to see the pictures of them when they're not so little anymore. They're in college, but when they were little, running out and playing with the children, you don't have to, kids don't need the same language to communicate. They
That is true.
absolutely. I mean, you'd see my children, I have 3 daughters, with like little buckets on their head carrying water or going into the like, scrubbing the dishes or the clothing with the kids in the river. And to them, it was fun. It was just fun. And then I got to explain to them, look, they don't have a washer. They don't have an indoor bathroom. I mean, this is fun for you, but this is kind of their daily life. And I think that has really stayed with them and has made them really give back to the community even more.
Yeah, great experience for younger, especially seeing different cultures and how different people live. So you're not
Yeah,
so isolated.
absolutely. For them, it's inviting, it's welcoming to see someone who's different or a different language or accent or whatnot. So there's no fear there for sure.
That's so cool. So The people that I have out there today, for all you folks out there listening, Gretchen, what can they do for you? How can they help you? And how can you help them? What do you want them to know?
Yeah, well, we are definitely going to keep going on our 10x Impact Ventures
Mhm.
journey with our small, medium businesses in emerging markets. And if you're interested in circular economy, you're interested in business in other countries and cultures, look up www.10ximpactventures.com and reach out to us because we'd love to hear your thoughts in terms of if you've done this before, if you've seen some different models, if you'd like to invest, and if you'd like to, say, talk to some of these businesses, because I can guarantee you a year from now, we're going to be in a very, very different place. And we'll be able to give you some really great first success stories.
So to find you, they need to go to 10ximpactadventures.com.
Impactventures.com.
Ventures. Impact
Yep.
Ventures. Not adventure. Not
10x.
adventure.
Nope. Well, it is kind of an adventure, but
Yeah.
10, I love that. So it's 10x Impact Ventures. And what that means is we want these anchor companies not just to increase their income, we want to 10 times their income because that's the only way we can make real business work in emerging markets. I mean, it's for too many years it has done a 1x or a 2x, right? That's not enough to change an emerging economy into some place that investors feel secure. And so that's the true goal of all of this.
What the 10X is all about. 10X it, uh, help the environment, help the people, help everybody get fed, help those farmers out be more productive so that we can eat, so we don't run out of food 50 years from now.
Exactly. You've got it.
If anything else we should let the folks know out there, anything else I haven't asked, so we should get out to the public.
Well, one thing that I'm asked a lot is why would private sector want to, invest in these social impact
Mhm.
kind of ideas and environment? And even though we're doing so as business, there are pieces of it that are truly are just social impact, giving back to communities. And one thing that I remind everyone is that we have Generation X, right? And Generation Z, right? And
Right.
right now, those generations, they are asking for companies that they buy from to actually give back. And so, what companies, some have figured out already, some have not figured out quite yet, is that if you invest, even if it's an investment, not aid, right? But it's actually an investment that you will make back over time into your supply chain in Africa or Latin America, you are going to get customer loyalty and you are actually going to increase your financial bottom line at the end of the day. Times are changing. This is a turning point. And private sector is going to be the actor and the sector that's going to make the difference moving us forward. And I think trying to figure out how that affects their bottom line is going to be one of the most important things that we need to do in this next decade.
Love it. Great message. Definitely. 10xventures.com. Go there. Go see Gretchen. Go ask her about it. See what you can do to help. Let me know how you feel about this episode. Put down your comments. Pass this on to people that you might think need it. Gretchen, thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me.